Hello, I'm Suren,
Hi, I'm Nagarajan.
and welcome to the first episode of our channel, Uninvited Opinions, a brand new channel where we discuss the latest developments in the sporting world, including our favorite sport, cricket. With the start of the 2020 edition of the Indian Premier League just around the corner, we are going to take a look at the teams, the players, and the key themes and trends likely to influence this year's edition. So grab a cup of your favorite drink, sit back, and enjoy the episode.
Yes, Indian Premier League has been a constant fixture in our annual calendars over the years. And well, with the 2020, nothing has been normal as the last years, as the past years. So we'll have a look at what is special and what is unique about this edition of the Indian Premier League. Um, if we take into account the factors impacting it, um, now it's the pandemic, which is actually the talk of the town all around the world. So, how are we going to conduct this tournament in this tough time of COVID? And what is the impact it's going to have on the players? And how is it going to influence the tournament in general? So, that's going to be very interesting. There are aspects such as playing in front of empty stadium. There are aspects such as the mental health, the players requiring to stay in their biosecure bubble, um, and well, in what way is it going to translate into their performance? It's a big question, and we are all going to see that, and it's going to be very intriguing to actually see it unfold. So it's certainly a tournament that's actually going to garner a lot of talking points, as much as the game itself. um,
Yeah, it's already come with a fair share of challenges for the IPL governing committee, for the BCCI to already try and conduct this tournament. Um, Someone like Jofra Archer, who has been in a biosecure environment for for the past 3-4 months, he's come out and said about the strains of playing in a biosecure environment and remaining in a biosecure bubble and what sort of impact it has on people's mental health. So it's going to be. We've already seen Suresh Raina put and Harbhajan Singh quite likely pulling out for for similar reasons. So it's going to be an interesting effect. It's going to be an interesting experiment actually to see how these teams are going to cope over the next few weeks.
yeah.
Add to that, teams are used to competing in a familiar environment in the respective hometowns. Having the respective practice, familiar practice facilities, familiar places to stay. This year, it's in a completely new venue. Although it's UAE, although they've played previously in 2014 in the UAE, it's still going to be in a new environment. Each of the three locations have their own. Again, being situated in different parts of the Emirates, they have their own set of rules. So while I think maybe teams potentially might benefit from less fatigue with travel as compared to crisscrossing
Yeah.
across India, across many different destinations, it's still going to be interesting to see how this sort of affects the dynamics of of the tournament this year.
Most certainly, the venues obviously are going to be closer, less travel, so that's in favor of the players. But then it completely changes the conditions of game of the play. Many of the teams would have actually composed their squad based on their home pitches, the
Yeah.
conditions in their home pitches, and now it's completely different. You are now essentially playing in dead, slow turning pitches. So the team composition is going to get impacted because of it. The scoring patterns are going to change because of that. And it's going to be interesting to see who are the technically adept players who actually take these factors out of the equation and still continue to entertain us. So lots of talking points, and it's going to be a very interesting tournament. So that's much for the overview. So we'll actually delve into the specific squads and what they each one has to offer, and we'll see. So
Yeah.
we'll try and go through four of the team previews, and we'll have a second video coming up in which we'll cover the remaining four teams.
Before I jump onto that, I think you mentioned a very important point, Nax. around the fact that you're not going to be playing on slower pitches. So Indian team, the teams in the past, the IPL teams in the past, you've always observed that barring maybe Chennai and some occasionally Hyderabad, most of the other pitches have actually been higher scoring, free scoring venues.
Right.
So
Right.
so I think a very valid point about this season, bringing into focus the more technically adept batsmen. You'll probably find every team, designating one individual as to play the anchor role, and let the other batsmen then try and score freely around them. And equally, I think teams are going to have interesting strategies to try and combat, make the best use of conditions. So
Yeah.
without further ado, let's jump into each of the squads. And I'll probably kickstart it with my home team, my favorite team, Chennai Super Kings, the most consistent team of the
Whistle podu,
IPL.
whistle podu.
Yes, I can. Although I'm not a great whistler, I don't want to embarrass myself any further by trying to whistle, in the video. I think everyone knows this. CSK have been the consistent team across each edition. They've been called the Dad's Army. They will continue to be called the Dad's Army. In fact, they were called the Dad's Army in 2018. So it's 2 years down the line. So they're now a little older. I'm racking my brains to see if there's any granddads in the army, but possibly no. And again, I think the squad over the years, they've had the franchise itself, they've focused heavily on continuity. They've always tried to maintain continuity in the players that they've had. Even this time around, despite the withdrawals of Harbhajan and Suresh Raina, they've decided not to opt for replacements and try and trust the squad of players that they already have. And to a certain extent, I think that shows the confidence that the franchise have in their abilities to make the best use of the team that they have at their disposal. And to be honest, I think the move to the UAE, while it may affect some other franchises, I think it probably plays right into CSK's strengths,
Oh, yes. Yes.
with the fact that they've got a plethora of spinners. They've always stacked up on spinners. Dhoni loves these kind of getting his team to score 140, 150, and then try and defend them and unleash his spinners on the
That's
team.
the Chennai strategy. Yeah.
Yeah, the Chennai strategy: spin it to win it. Low turning,
Yes. Yes.
low surfaces with not a lot of bounce, lots of turn, and scrappy encounters. But Chennai still have those power hitters in their squad to try and make the difference. So the squad is just laden with proven T20 match winners. You've got you can just count them off of your fingers. You've got Dhoni, you've got Watson, you've got Bravo, Jadeja, Duplessis. People who have won the IPL over the years. They know how to win it. They know how to reach the playoffs. So I think it's a fantastic team. The other thing which was interesting to note was, I think a couple of months ago, there was a lot of, again, talk about the fact that this team has a number of players who haven't played in the recent months.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
Dhoni, for example, hasn't played since June last year, since the defeat against New Zealand in the World Cup semi-final. So
And
there's a
Raidu
lot.
couldn't make it to the World Cup squad.
Yeah, and he skipped the Ranji Trophy after that.
Right.
Hasn't had a great success in the domestic T20 tournament. So there was a lot of question mark around that. But I think the fact that almost every franchise is now in this position because of the COVID environment, and because they've not had a lot of cricket, barring the teams from the English players and some of those who have participated in the CPL. Most players have not had any sort of opportunity to
Yeah.
play
Level
in.
playing ground now for
Yeah,
everyone.
yeah. So I think that sort of again strengthens CSK's case. That, with the know-how of how to make it to the playoffs, combined with the tactical genius that is MS Dhoni, I think it's I think they still stand a very good chance of making it to yet another playoff in of the IPL. I think that
I totally I can't disagree with any of the points you've made, but I must also bring this up that if I look through the squad, it somehow doesn't appear to be very appealing. I know they're going to get the job done. They have proven me wrong in the past, and most likely they're going to prove me wrong once again. It's just the experience that probably gets them through time and again. So it's not very flashy, squashbuckling, and very appealing. Um, But yes, most likely one of the contenders. So without doubt, one of the teams to watch.
Yeah, and I think the way CSK plays is that you don't have one or two match winners. Over the years we've seen different people sort of put up the hand and pull the team through. They've made some very interesting additions to this year's squad. They've got Hazelwood in, they've got Sam Curran in, they've got a couple of Indian left arm, a couple of Indian spinners. They've got Piyush Chawla in, who is again I think a very good buy. Sort of offset some of the probably the loss of Harbhajan to a certain extent.
Keeps with
Having
the
an Indian,
theme of the dad's army anyway.
well, yeah, yeah. um, and then they've also got Sai Kishore, who is a left arm spinner who played, I think who had a very successful run in the domestic T20 tournaments. I think that if one were to try and nitpick a couple of problem areas for Chennai, I think it's probably going to be, depending on how many, the conditions in the UAE are not going to be the best. It's going to be hot. It's going to be challenging. There are a few games which are going to be played in the middle of the afternoon, so which could prove challenging. Again, it's the dad's army, so you could have older daddy legs running around. So fielding could be an issue. So it's going to be interesting to see how they, keep the squad fresh. How they get in the right balance of, the winning proven match winners, along with some of those fresher legs to help with the fielding. The
Yeah.
other potential issue is probably power hitters. So it's going to be interesting to see. Again, I think it's going to be a combination of Dhoni, Jadeja, probably Jadhav, uh, Bravo in a couple of innings to try and sort of get them across the line.
That's been the template. Yeah.
That's been the template. That's been the CSK template. So I think the strategy for CSK going into this tournament is to try and probably get 150, and then set their spinners loose, and then defend the totals, and try and win games. So
Anyone particular in this season you would want the viewers to look out for?
um, well, I do have a couple of candidates I think who might do well. Sam Curran is one. I really like Sam Curran. I think he's feisty. He
I wonder why Kings 11 would have let him go. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think he blew a bit hot and cold last year, but I think that's something that you would probably expect from someone young. But again, I think he brings a lot to the table. I don't think he'll play that often for Chennai. Because if you look at, because I think Chennai, given the loss of Raina, I think they might probably want to play both Watson and Duplessis, and you've always got Bravo in the team. So then the fourth spot could be a mix between Mitchell Santner, who's again a who's done really well for Chennai, or Imran Tahir or Sam Curran. So I think they're going to sort of play around with the combinations. I think if Watson is probably unfit, then maybe Sam Curran could come in. He's one to look out for. The other one is Ruturaj Gaikwad. I've
Yeah.
not seen him
Yeah.
play. I've heard that he scored a lot of runs for India A. And again, he's been touted as the replacement for Suresh Raina to pick up the
Hmm.
number 3 spot in the team.
Big
And
shoes
again,
to fill.
big shoes to fill. But if you look at CSK, if you look at Dhoni, very rarely do you see them anointing someone so publicly or backing someone so publicly and then not
Yeah.
succeeding.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think they must have high hopes from him, and high, obviously looked at his abilities and be confident that he should be able to deliver. So I think even though he's been one of those squad members who's been affected by COVID-19 and is likely to miss a couple of matches at the beginning of the tournament, I think he is one to definitely look out for. So Sam Curran, Ruturaj Gaikwad, my surprise picks for CSK for the year, and
Interesting.
uh, you know,
Yeah.
um, I
And
really
and
hope.
and the Dhoni factor,
And the
the
Dhoni
Tala.
factor, it's always there. The Dhoni factor is always there, and CSK just know how to succeed. So
Yeah.
I always bet on CSK. Um,
Yeah.
they never
Yeah.
disappoint.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a safe bet, I'm sure. Yeah.
Perfect.
I
So
think
you've
moving
been,
on.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I understand you've been digging into these, Delhi Capitals is what I understand.
Yes. Yes. Somehow, um, there is a very sneaky feeling that they could be the dark horse. Well, it's rather disservice to call them a dark horse. I would believe they are actually one of the front runners, if I'm not wrong. and they've kind of stitched together a very, very strong squad, and they are going to be very ably coached by a very talented person, Ricky Ponting, and needless to say, no one obviously likes losing, but Ricky is going to try and find a way to win somehow. So he's already tasted success with MI before. Now he's actually been the DC at the helm of DC for the second year running. So he's kind of overseen the building of the squad, and you can actually see his influence, his inputs into the squad selection. So it makes for very interesting reading. You have a very strong Indian contingent there.
Yeah,
You've got the likes of Rahane, Dhawan move from their respective franchises into DC, and the core remains with DC, which is Shreyas Iyer, Rishabh Pant, Prithvi Shaw. So in this, and now they've actually gotten Ravichandran Ashwin as well from Kings 11. So
yeah.
the Indian core is extremely strong. Each of them are international, are having international caps. So and there is as such no insecurity about a place in the team or having to prove something to get into the Indian side. So they've been there, done that, that kind of a proven squad. And to add to that, the overseas strength is quite commendable. They have the spinners aspect, the spin department ably covered with the acquisition of Ashwin. They have Akshar Patel, and and there is and there is Amit Mishra, so the wily
Amit
old
Mishra.
leggy.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's hard to look past him. So among the highest wicket takers in the IPL.
yeah.
So that's there. And if you like for the low and slow pitches, if you like people who could bowl a little bit of cutters and slower balls, then you have Harshal Patel, Mohit Sharma kind of who was groomed by Dhoni pretty much, the back of the
Yeah,
hand, slower ball,
yeah.
and yeah, you could get a couple of overs up at the top in the power play, and even you can bet on him for delivering an over or two in the death. Then you have Kahiso Rabada. So you have out and out pace. So completely takes the pitch out of the equation. Um, so
So again,
the
this
bowling
appears to be
looks
one of
strong.
those. Sorry, appears to be one of those teams which doesn't seem to be highly affected by moving to the UAE, because it, again,
Correct.
it's a squad which was supposed to be, picked for the Kotla, which is
Kotla,
again
exactly.
low and slow pitches, which takes a little bit of turn, and I think should they should have, I think they have enough firepower within the squad to try and compete well in the UAE again.
Yeah. They've got the all-rounder spot covered, well covered as well. They've got Chemo Paul, whom we saw what he's capable of a little bit in last year's edition. And then they've got Marcus Stoinis this year as well.
Yeah,
So we've seen from the BBL, if required, he can actually bat at the top. In the recently concluded England Australia series, he batted number 3 for Australia in the ODIs. So he could be used in the middle order at the top. So there is a little bit of flexibility. And I think Rishabh Pant has a lot to prove. We've already heard a lot about the potential he offers. Ponting speaks very highly of him. It's time that he delivers. So I'm very much hopeful to see a high scoring batting performance consistently from DC, and their spinners should actually rule in UAE consistently. And the pacers are there. Ishan Sharma is there, so there is homegrown experience in the pace attack as well. So they look a very well-rounded squad, and not to mention, not to forget to mention the inclusion of Alex Carey.
yeah.
So I, I, I think we've seen very little of him in the Australian circle. He's very talked very highly of, and somehow I feel that he'll be the nudger to milk the middle overs if required, and he would have the power game if in case he is to come in at the later stage of the innings. So yeah, lots to look out for. Shimran Hetmeyer, goodness, I don't know. I mean, there's so many names that we can't help but mention here. So there's a lot to
I
look
think
for.
I've
There's a
got a
lot of promise.
Yeah, I've got a couple of challenges to throw at you. I think the first one being Carey. You mentioned you talked about Carey. The fact that he's actually coming off the series with England. where he actually struggled in the T20s, batted reasonably well in the second ODI, and then made a brilliant 100 in the third ODI. So that should give him a bit of confidence. Sorry, but do you think he actually has a game to succeed on the slow and low pitches in the UAE? Because
So
looking at the way he faced Adil Rashid, he was quite tentative against him. I wasn't sure he was always picking the ball. It felt that he was playing off the surface, which at times might work for you, but ideally if you especially if you want to go after the bowling, you should be able to pick it off the hand. And
absolutely, yeah.
so I don't know if he's going to do that.
Um, See, I could be proven wrong, and indeed, the sample size we are looking at is very small. So there
Yeah.
isn't much to take home about what we have seen of him so far. But just the reputation that he brings and the value that he actually adds in terms of how the Australians look at him, he's pretty much their number one wicketkeeper in the white ball format now. So obviously, he must be having, and the little that I have seen, he is someone who seemed to have, who's very light on his legs, quick on his feet, and nudging the ball here and there to the third man. So he looks to be a busy player who won't be bogged down, and if required, has the big game. I don't know
My
how much of it, all that I'm talking, is going to be. It remains to be seen how many games he gets to play in the first place, and if at all he gets to play, how many he actually manages to force everyone to take a note of him. But very interesting pick nonetheless. And I think with that, they have probably one of the most well-rounded squads going around in this tournament.
Well, I've got one more question for you. So if you look at the Delhi top order, so you've got Shikhar Dhawan, you've got Prithvi Shaw, Ajinkya Rahane, you've got Shreyas Iyer. So where does that leave Rishabh Pant? So last year I think he batted number three with Iyer coming in at number four. Sorry, I missed out Prithvi Shaw. Or did I? So where does that leave Rishabh Pant? Does this mean that to accommodate all these players, to given the fact that they don't have that firepower in the middle order, do you think this means Rishabh Pant might actually be pushed down to bat at say 5 or 6 to give that ballast to the innings at the latter part of the innings? Um,
Well, what we think from the outside probably matters less here. I
mhm.
think the team management should have a clear discussion with him, what they
Mhm.
expect of him. If they think that he is someone, and if he is honest about what he wants, if he thinks that he is someone who actually needs a couple of fours to get in before he starts going bang bang, or is he actually well suited for the finisher's role at number 5 or number 6, where he can come in with 6 overs to go and actually take a couple of 1 over or so to settle in and then start actually taking the run rate over. So as long as there is clarity in his mind, as long as there is clarity in what role the team management expects of him, um, we could extract the best out of him. if we if we have a very confused role for him, a few games we try playing him up the order, and then suddenly we are seeing him being pushed down the order, it doesn't do anyone any good. So I think, as long as the role is clear and it's been discussed with him, and his personal aspirations have been taken into account, and the team management has a specific role for him jotted down, then I think there is so much to look forward to from Pant. And I think one way or the other, Ponting will try and find a way of extracting the best out of him. I remember when he was originally left out of the Indian World Cup squad, Ponting was very vocal about it. And he eventually made it after the injury to Vijay Shankar. But yes, so it's high time that the promise that he's shown is translated into the actual results now.
You're dodging my question. Where would you bat him? Do you think he should be batting
Uh,
at three this year, or do you think
okay.
would you play
Look,
him at five?
look, look, Looking at the current composition of the squad, he's best suited to bat at 5 or 6, no higher than that.
Brilliant. Okay, and who's your surprise pick for DC? Given that you've waxed lyrical about Carey all this time, I'm presuming you've got Carey in your
Yes,
performers to watch for.
I'll certainly name him among the players to watch,
Hmm.
and I'm hoping that Chemo Paul comes good now, better than what we saw of him last year. He's actually carried a very big tag of being a very consistent all rounder. So as long as he gets consistent games, I think he's there to shine. So someone to look out for.
Okay, interesting pick. Not, so we'll certainly see how he fares over the course of this competition. Let's see how much he actually gets to play in the DC squad. Given the strong Indian contingent, they don't, they might surprise everyone and not play any overseas players. So
Yeah.
uh,
They have the capability of actually fielding all 11 Indian side. Yes.
excellent. Moving on. So I'm
Yeah.
going to move on to probably the team with the most passionate fan base in the IPL, the Corbo Lorbo Jeetbo Brigade.
Yeah.
Um, you're obviously talking about the Kolkata Knight Riders, and again, uh, they've had a couple of interesting years with in I think in the 2018 auction they let go of Gambhir. They brought in Dinesh Karthik. He's been captain for a couple of years. They reached the playoffs one year. Last year, I think they missed out on the playoffs. They're quite close. I think they finished fifth in the tournament. Um, it's going to be quite interesting to see. Again, this is a squad. If you look at the squad, I think it was a squad designed for Eden Gardens, which in recent years has put out a very fast, bouncy pitch. So they've actually flourished with a strong contingent of fast bowlers, both Indian and overseas. And if you look at the squad that they have, it was heavily designed to play all 7 home games at Eden Gardens. That plan has obviously now been, shot by the current COVID pandemic. So now they've got to try and adapt the existing squad to play on the slower, low pitches in the UAE. That said, they've still got some very high quality batsmen. They've got Shubman Gill, who's really itching to go this year. I think he was very disappointed not to have made the last Indian squad to New Zealand. They've got Dinesh Karthik, who's an excellent T20 player. Really, he's come of age as a batsman in the last 2-3 years. Andre Russell, I don't think I need to say a lot about him. He was MVP
MVP.
last year. MVP can takes the pitch out of the equation, takes the bowlers out of the equation. He can single-handedly win you matches. They've gone
Not to
gone for
forget his bowling skills.
his bowling skills, which, well, I don't know how much he's actually going to bowl this year. If I look at, I watched him play a bit in the CPL, and I think he's had some trouble with his knees. So maybe he was managing his knee condition so that he can bowl less in the CPL and more in the IPL. But yeah, I think. If it comes to a choice, I think probably Kolkata might sacrifice Russell the bowler for Russell the batsman. Is my guess. They've made a very. I think they've probably got one of the buys of the auction last year with Evan Morgan, and I think he brings some. He's coming on the back of some incredible form for England, and I think he also brings tremendous leadership skills. He has a great rapport with Brendan McCullum, who's the coach for Knight Riders, and I think that's really again a quality pick. I think Morgan has struggled in previous editions, but I back him to come good this year, and I think I back him to make some runs. And I think he also adds much needed, leadership support for
Yeah.
Dinesh Karthik.
I-
Um,
invaluable. Yeah.
absolutely, and I think my take on KKR is whatever batting order you choose, please put Shubman Gill out to open, and I think he should just play the anchor role and let all the other stroke makers play around him and look to bat as deep as possible in every innings. Um, and then moving on, I think they've got some excellent fast bowling options, both overseas and Indian contingent. So if you look at, so they've got Pat Cummins, they've got Lockie Ferguson as two quality overseas fast bowlers. And then they've got a whole Indian contingent. They've got Shivam Mavi, Kamlesh Nagarkoti, they've got Prasidh Krishna,
Yeah.
they've got Sandeep Warrior. I get the feeling that they could probably loan a couple of them to the other teams just so they get the playing time. But
Yeah. Yeah.
it would have been really interesting if they would have
Yeah.
if they played in India, because all the fast bowlers, especially Mavi and Nagarkoti, who missed last year's edition, they are actually fit. Um,
Yeah.
so it's going to be
Yeah,
interesting to see.
we've heard a lot, we've seen a lot in the previous under 19 World Cup. We've seen what they're capable of, and it was very unfortunate to not see them actually move on from there and see move on to the next level and see perform at the big stage. So I think this is their opportunity.
Indeed.
And yeah, Pat
Let, let
Cummins must be breathing easy actually after having gone for the highest money in the auction to see that the IPL was being called off. So it's probably he must have actually booked his tickets first to the UAE, seeing that the tournament actually is scheduled now after all. So yeah, very useful cricketer, very among the best bowlers going around right now, certainly. So
Indeed. I,
indeed.
Yeah, I think if there's one area where I think KKR have a major drawback, and again, this is probably a factor of their squad being heavily designed around playing at Eden Gardens, is that they're lacking a bit on spin. So you've got Kuldeep Yadav is probably going to be their main spinner. He had a tough 2019 IPL. He's had a sort of up and down last 12-18 months with the national team as well. So, but he's going to be the lead spinner this year. Again, a lovely bowler to watch, and the pitches should
When in
definitely
full
aid
flight,
him.
yes.
Indeed, pun intended, I suppose. To support Kuldeep, we also have Sunil Narayan. Now, obviously, we know that Sunil is not the same bowler that he was a few years ago. He's developed into a more all-round package with his hard-hitting batting. But if you solely look at him as a bowler, as a spinner, yes, he'll give you those 4 overs. But is he going to have the same? I don't think batsmen fear him anymore. A few years ago, you had those 4 overs in the bank. You knew that they were not going to be, batsmen were not going to take their chances against him. They just looked to play him out, and try and score off the other bowlers. Which is when I think Kolkata won 2 out of 3 IPLs under Gautam Gambhir. But ever since he's had his action remodel, he's not had the same sort of impact. That's not to say that he's any less challenging as a bowler, but I
Oh
just think
no, the repetition certainly matters. Yes.
it does. It does. I just think that if there's an injury to either Kuldeep or Sunil Narayan, then you're probably looking at you don't have a third bowler. If I'm not wrong, I think Sunil Narayan actually missed the final of the CPL due to injury. So I don't know what his status is. I don't know if he's fit to play. So I think given where they're playing, I think they're sort of light on spin. They don't have any of the other bowlers, some of the other slow medium bowlers that other teams have, who can just
Yeah,
run
there's
in
no
and
cutters or anyone.
bowl those
Yeah.
cutters. Exactly. So I think that's probably an area where they struggle. But you never know. Maybe the place contingent that they've got, maybe Mavi and Nagarkoti, if they get to play, they probably just take the pitches out of the equation and just beat the batsman in the air with sheer pace. You never know. So
Yeah, yeah, interesting.
yeah,
What's your
and
take on Sunil Narayan as an opener? And they probably tried him out for one or two occasions, but he actually succeeded consistently, and so much so that he actually started featuring as a penned in opener for most of the pundits.
Indeed, I think it was a reinvention that no one saw coming, and I think he's really surprised a lot of viewers over the past 2-3 years. Um, uh, that said, I think he's someone who generally prefers pace on the ball. Not that
Absolutely. Yeah.
not that he's not tongue spinners around, but I think he's generally someone who prefers more pace on the ball. So it's going to be interesting to see how he fares in the UAE. Um, I would probably still stick him in the opening position because that's probably where they get the most value out of him. But I probably see him not having as successful a season, as compared to what he would have had if he played in Kolkata. So I think that's probably why you get
Did you
Gill
did you forget mentioning Tom Banton on purpose?
uh, after his recent struggles against spinners coming in the middle overs, and the fact that this is going to be played in the UAE. Banton might get a couple of games, but I really think he's got some way to go, developing his game against spin before he features consistently as a first choice overseas pick in an IPL team. Has
Yeah,
he been
but
playing in
lot of
Kolkata?
talent, lot of talent to offer, nevertheless. So he's
Absolutely,
someone
absolutely.
certainly to look forward to. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if they were playing in Kolkata, I think they would have probably played him and Gill as the first choice openers. Um, uh, but I think given the fact that it's happening in the UAE, he's probably a replacement for Morgan if Morgan has an injury.
Oh,
Is the way
yeah,
I see that playing.
yeah,
Um, Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to watching Shubman Gill this year. I've not watched him bat as much as I'd like to in the previous seasons, and I really hope this is his season. So
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, and
great,
I
great. Your bets are not misplaced. I can tell you that. Yeah,
well, fingers crossed, and let's hope for his sake and for the Indian team's sake. I think he has a fabulous year and sort of pushes on for higher honors.
yeah. Moving
Excellent.
on. The next up we have a very interesting team, Kings 11 Punjab. um, who've always been there or thereabouts, would probably miss out on qualifying by a couple of games or a couple of points. So let's see how they have actually revamped the squad. They have actually had a change at the top as well. Anil Kumble has taken over as the coach.
Yeah,
Very interesting choice. We've all known about how successful he was as a national teams coach. So let's see how he handles an IPL franchise this time.
yeah.
And having said that, they have a very interesting squad to look into. They've, of course, lent their support to KL Rahul. He is now, I believe, I hope they don't burden him. He's most likely going to be their He is their captain. He's most likely going to be their opening batsman and quite probably their wicketkeeper as well. Can he cope with all the three of the roles? We'll get to see him. But I hope whatever they do, they should, of course, try to maximize his potential and get the most out of him. Because, well, when he's on song, he's someone worth looking at.
I think he
What
probably
do you?
doesn't have
Yeah,
enough roles already. I think he should probably also, take on the responsibilities of team driver and
curator.
yeah, and curator, and probably also chip in with catching practice, I guess.
Yeah. Why not? Yeah. So,
But again,
well,
I agree. I think he's been in tremendous form over the past 12 months. I think he's probably been the standout batsman for India on the tour of New Zealand, especially in the limited overs edition. So I think big year for him. Big year for him.
yeah, and they've got some level of consistency over the last year squad. So they still have Mayank Agarwal walking in. They have Sarfaraz Khan, who is an acquisition from RCB, so
Yeah,
who is actually having a lot of promise. So if you look at their Indian batting strength, they seem quite settled. They have Karun Nair. Well, there is a question mark. How much gas is left in the tank for him? He's obviously been the triple centurion other than Sehwag. He obviously shot into the scene, but kind of always blown hot and cold since. And so, for his sake, for Kings 11's sake, we would all hope that he actually comes good this season. Um, and well, some person I would like to have a special mention about is Nicholas Puran. Talked about the additional responsibility that KL Rahul may want to relinquish the wicket keeping. So you obviously have a replacement wicketkeeper in Puran and a fantastic attacking batsman in the middle order, left-handed, packs a punch. So a lot of promise. So the question then is, how do you balance the side with the overseas and the Indian contingent? And then you have the main big question of what do you do with the universal boss? It, I mean, to think of it, it'll be blasphemous to think that a starting 11 doesn't feature Gale, and you still have to see how much he has to offer. He may just play 5 games, but among those 5 games, 2 of those games could be his. So slow, low pitches doesn't matter. He can tonk it all over the park. So it's a very interesting question. And then um, they've they've got Glenn Maxwell, who they cannot afford to overlook.
yeah,
He's fresh coming off 100. We saw his struggles, but we also saw what he's capable of if he gets his head down. So
yeah,
he is going to be a hit and a miss. But remember, the last time Kings 11 made to the finals, it was Maxwell's year. And I
yeah,
believe that was also the year where Kings 11 actually had a lot of success in the UAE. It
yeah,
was the Maxwell, Miller, double M's.
yeah.
That was the year. So
They
it'll be very
they
interesting.
are they were led by George Bailey, I think, in
Yes,
2014, which
yes,
is when
yes.
he just gave them the freedom. And I still have nightmares from. I think there was a game between Kings 11 and CSK, and I think CSK made upwards of 200.
Yeah,
And I thought, okay, this game is in the bag. There's no way Kings 11 is going to make it. And I think Maxwell got them home in 18 overs,
yeah,
and uh, I remember, and Ravi Ashwin was at that point in time. He was, a very dominant limited overs bowler, and if there was one player in the world he struggled to bowl to, it was probably Maxwell.
Yeah, yeah,
He just couldn't figure out how to bowl to Maxwell because any which way, especially in 2014, any which way you bowl to Maxwell, you were just swatting him around. Uh,
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, so you never know.
On
He's
his
coming
day,
back on the back of his
the bowlers
great
don't
form.
matter. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. He's coming on the back of great form in England. We've seen, especially in the ODI series. So
One,
you
one,
never
one,
know.
100. But yeah, that's
No,
form enough.
well, he also had. I think he also scored a 77 in the first ODI, which
Correct.
sort of set up their win. So I think he's coming off good hitting form, and the big show can turn it on anytime. So
Yeah,
you can never discount Maxwell. I agree.
yeah. And then they've actually splurged a lot of money on Sheldon Cottrell. So it's going to be interesting to see how he performs. A left armer capable of bowling those cutters. So they've probably seen something that they were willing to pay that much. So for the sake of Kings 11, let's hope he actually comes good. But otherwise, we just see all shades of Team Karnataka in playing for Kings 11 Punjab. So uh,
Right up to the coach.
right up to the coach, absolutely. Another interesting acquisition is the new under 19 spinning sensation, Ravi Bisnoi.
Yeah,
So, yeah, he along with Mujib forms a reasonably good spinning partnership, but there is not much to write home about for the rest of the squad about the spinning abilities. But these two are quite a handful by themselves.
yeah,
So, uh, it's it's a squad that obviously no one will jump out of their seats looking at, but it's going to always be capable of causing more than just an upset here and there. So and if they manage to string together a couple of consistent performances, couple of weeks of consistent performances, they could be actually looking at qualification. So not to discount them at all.
I don't disagree. I think it's just again, it's a new captain, new coach, a team which hasn't been very settled in the past. So it's going to again, like a few other teams. It's about whether they can get the right combinations, whether they can get the right players sort of come into form. You talked about Gale. You don't know if how he's obviously not played in the CPL. I don't remember when he last played. Probably one of the other T20 leagues. So I don't know. You don't know what sort of form he's carrying in. You mentioned Sheldon Cottrell. He had a great World Cup last year, the ODI World Cup, but he's not had a great CPL. So he's not coming off again with a lot of confidence. Ravi Bishnoi, I actually watched a lot of the under 19 World Cup. Fantastic bowler, and I think he.
Yeah,
I don't know if so. I think in the final against Bangladesh, we didn't have a great total. He bowled a brilliant spell to get the team back into contention. Even though we lost in the end, I think he had a fantastic tournament. And again, feisty cricketer,
yeah,
has a
quick
lot of
through the
fight,
air. Yeah,
quick through the air, bowl stump to stump. Not very dissimilar to Rashid Khan. Does turn the ball okay. I mean, he can turn the leg break quite distance, but generally he bowls a lot of googlies. At least he did in the under 19 World Cup. So it's going to be again interesting to see how he sort of graduates into the big world of IPL.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
I do have one question for you.
yeah.
And I'm not going to make the mistake of asking you a question the same way I asked about Delhi Capitals. So I'm going to be more direct this time. Are you, if you were the coach, if you were the captain, will you have Gale in your starting 11 for the first game?
Yes.
Okay, brave choice.
I don't know the fixture who they are playing first, but anyway, just to make a statement, he's there to perform. He's not making up the numbers. So yes, that does make a strong statement to start with Gale.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, I wouldn't have picked him, but there you go. We've got different views. And who do you think is the player to watch out for from Kings 11? Who are you going to be keeping a close eye on?
Well, the, I don't know whether he is indeed going to be one of the key performers, but someone who I actually have a very soft corner for, and I would ideally like him to succeed, is Nicholas Puran. For all the potential that he has, the Caribbean, the people, Ian Bishop talks very highly of him. He does now consistently feature in the West Indies 11, in the white ball team. I think Puran and Maxwell in the middle order could be a handful for any
Yeah,
opposition.
yeah,
Uh, but of course, see, getting the overseas players balance right is going to be a challenge for every team. So not every overseas player is available for them for selection. They have to respect the team balance and the needs. So it's going to be challenging. Mujib would probably be a starter for most of the games because of of how lean they are on spinners. So that kind of so getting the balance will be a challenge. And if at all Puran gets to play a lot of games, I would like to see him succeed, and I believe he will. And therefore, for me, he, along with Ravi Bishnoi, would be the players to watch out for in Kings 11. Players to watch out for outside of the usual suspects. So the usual suspect for me would be KL Rahul. So I'm
yeah.
banking big on him. So
Yeah, I think KL Rahul would be the key player, but I agree. I think you know a lot depends on Nicholas Puran and probably Ravi Bishnoi. I hope they get the chances to play consistently and sort of make that impact in this year's
we,
IPL. And
we both will agree that an open IPL actually makes for a better viewing than a
yeah,
one-sided one. So Kings 11 actually has a big role to play in that. They
yeah,
don't need to just cause one or two upsets here and there. They actually need to be a contender right from the beginning. So let's see. If they can make the best use of the squad they have a very good, astute tactician in Anil Kumble. So there's no, it won't be wrong to be betting big on them.
indeed, indeed. So that covers our analysis of four of the eight teams in the IPL. So in this episode, we've looked at the Chennai Super Kings, Delhi Capitals, Kolkata Knight Riders, and Kings 11 Punjab. That brings us to the end of the first part of our episode, analyzing the 2020 edition of the IPL. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for the second part where we review the remaining teams and have some exciting predictions to share. We've made both gone ahead out on a limb and hopefully made some bold predictions. And again, we're a new channel, so while our opinions are uninvited, see the channel name, Uninvited Opinions. Your opinions are highly valued, so please share your thoughts with us in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share this video and subscribe to the channel to keep more videos coming your way. And finally, thank you for watching. And have a wonderful day. Stay safe and stay blessed. Cheers.
Stay
Bye bye.
safe. Thank you for watching. Bye. See you soon.